All right, welcome back. Hey, we are talking about what you should know by age 40. This is part four. And I'm going to ask you, what's your typical mindset? Are you a victor or are you a victim? Let's talk about that a little bit.
This is the Franchise Pitfalls and Profit Show. Each week, we bring you the challenges and triumphs of being in the franchise development and consulting business. The things you need to make money faster. And now your host, one of the most successful franchise developers in North America, Don Shin.
I was really excited to talk about this subject today, but because I think this is something that has been lost a lot in today's society. I don't know if it's a generational thing or not. I'm not taking shots at anybody, but your life is 100% your responsibility. No one's coming to save you from your problems. And once you figure this out, you are on your way to tremendous success. Taking 100% responsibility for your life is about understanding that your choices, your actions, your whole mindset will shape your path. This doesn't mean that everything that happens to you is your fault. I'm not saying that, but because life does throw things at us from time to time, things that we can't ever always understand or expect them all, and they're difficult for all of us. But it does mean that how you respond to those challenges is within your control. If you experience a setback, it's not about assigning blame to yourself necessarily or to others, but it's really instead about asking, what can I do to move forward from here? How can I improve so that this, if it's a negative, that this does not happen again? A company I used to be affiliated with used to talk about being above and below the line. Above the line was taking ownership. It was being accountable. It was being responsible, as I just used the word responsibility. Responsible for your outcome or for the outcomes and for the actions that are creating the outcomes. Below the line was blaming. Below the line was often making excuses. Below the line was sometimes denying something is happening or just being in denial. So pretty much getting to the point, which are you? Are you someone that lives mostly above the line or mostly below the line? Yes, we all do slip. But what I have said for years is, how long do you stay below the line? How long do you stay down? So we all take shots at others. We all have organizational issues. Heck, even sometimes I've seen people get mad at the weather. But so no one is perfect. We all can slip a little bit, but again. And I don't want you to beat yourself up if you do find, wow, I slipped below the line. But I ask you is what's your nature? Do you stay below the line? And I often always ask is what's your habit of who you might reach out to when you're going through something like this? Do you go to someone else that is a complainer, a whiner, who's going to help keep you down? Or do you go to someone who is an encourager? You go to someone who can help look at your situation with you and find some of the good things out of it, or just overall, help you out of the hole, or help you up above the line. So what's your habit? What's your nature? If you do slip below the line. Now, taking responsibility doesn't mean that you have to go it alone. But what I think it does mean is that you are ultimately accountable with what you do with your life. I think accountability is free because it gives you a sense of control. Rather than feeling that victim or having that victim mindset to the circumstances that you're in, you can recognize that your power is to be adaptable. You have the power to change. You could create the future that you ultimately want. There's a quote that I love, and let me just look at it quickly. You cannot control the wind, but you can control. Pardon me. You cannot control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. So life might throw things at you. You can consider them or the analogy of storms. But you can always make adjustments to what's going on. That to me is what a responsibility looks like. It's accepting that something's going on and it is out of your control. And what happens sometimes is not in your control, but how you react, or how, as you're anticipating a storm, how you prepare for that, what you do in preparation and what you do next is absolutely under your control, in your control. And that is what responsibility looks like. We can start taking responsibility for our lives. And when we do, as I said, it's freeing. What is remarkable about taking control is that we suddenly start to gain power, or the denying and the blaming and the excuses that used to have a power over us, they suddenly dwindle away. We stop blaming circumstances. We're right now going through some just some off track type business conditions with a major election year. But guess what? I just hate saying, "Oh, it's the election year. That's why we're not selling as much." So we have to stop blaming these circumstances. We have to stop blaming people, and really shouldn't even blame ourselves. But we just have to start to look for solutions to what's going on in life. So, for example, if you're struggling in your career, rather than saying, "Oh, I'm just unlucky," or rather than saying my superiors are idiots, or, "Hey, the system is against me," you can start saying, "Well, what skills do I need to gain in order to get better, in order to get that position? Who do I have to become? How do I have to develop? Who do I have to meet? What connections maybe do I need to make?" And that's going to allow you to, again, to have power, have control, and to create the opportunities. This is a shift from excuse to action. And it's very transformative. It doesn't mean that the path is always clearer, doesn't mean that it's always easier. But what it does mean is that you probably won't face as many setbacks as you would have if you're playing that victim role. It means that you won't let setbacks that you do encounter hold you back. You start seeing some of these challenges as opportunities. I'm sure you've heard that phrase before, but it really does happen as you start to live above the line with more of a victor mentality, and you'll grow. You start to prove to yourself how capable you are. You begin to gain an incredible amount of self-confidence, if you will. A big part of taking responsibility is mindset. And if you believe that life happens to you, then you're always going to feel below the line, living below the line as a victim. But if you believe that life happens for you, you start to see every challenge really as a part of the path, steps or stepping stones toward where you want to go. This is a very powerful mindset shift. It allows you to take ownership of your life when things are not always going as hoped or as planned. So let's talk about some of the what you probably know. Some of these people, maybe you know their stories, maybe you know these names, or maybe you don't. But let's look at a couple of people in history. What about people like Nelson Mandela, Helen Keller, Viktor Frankl? These people each faced extraordinary challenges. They found themselves in some of the most difficult life and death situations, and yet they found ways to take control of their minds and their mindsets. They found purpose in where they were and what they were doing, even in the horrible hardships that they were facing. They didn't wait for someone to come rescue them. Instead, they took control. They found a way to turn their circumstances into the best that they could make of it, and even opportunities. They became resilient, and they were having an impact on their circumstances that looked like circumstances that could never be or could never happen. And we can do the same thing, even if it's in smaller ways. We can do things in our daily lives that are going to make a difference. Another part of taking responsibility is just realizing that no one else can do that inside self-esteem, self-confidence work for you. You have to do that. People can give you advice. This hopefully is encouraging and good advice and some insight, but only you can make the changes that you need to make, the changes that need to be made to have the transformation and the transition that you'd want. Whether that means, develop a new habit. I've read that our actions, 90% of our actions, what we do, are from the habits that we build. So maybe it's a matter of identifying bad habits and replacing them. Maybe it's facing fears. Maybe there's a pain from the past that you need some healing on. Whatever it is, it's up to you to do that internal work that's necessary. But know that while it isn't easy, it really is essential for you to do it. When we rely on others to solve our problems, we really kind of miss out on the strength that we could be building and the growth that we could be making and the advancements that we could be making when we face and hit head on our own challenges. The self-discipline, I mentioned resilience, self-awareness. These are skills that grow when we take ownership, when we actually engage in the circumstances and the situations. These are things that will empower us to handle future challenges and future storms. But it's unfortunate, though. I was recently listening to a podcast or a sermon while I was working out at the gym, and they were talking about the consequences of our actions, and that are we in the habit of doing things that others will step in and fix? Sometimes there are people in our lives that are always the fixers. And again, I think that's unfortunate. But there are a lot of people who just don't pay attention to the potential consequences, and therefore they exit a circumstance or they exit a situation that they've screwed up, and it should be their responsibility, but someone else must or has to clean up for them. That's sad, because I don't think that's being an adult. It's really unfair to our loved ones who are having to do this on a regular basis for us. And I serve at a rescue mission here in where I live, and I've done this for years. And you know what? I can tell you that the reason many people are addicted to things, the many reasons they are homeless, is because people have finally gotten tired of and stopped picking up the pieces for other people, picking up the pieces for some of their loved ones. So what do you need to do? I think when we take responsibility for our lives, we become the authors of our own stories. And I love that. So no matter what the story has been up to this point, you can write a new chapter. You can make it different. You can put a twist to the story that no one else believes could ever happen. When we take responsibility, we stop waiting for external validation. We start waiting for the weather to be perfect or the right circumstances before we take action. We stop waiting for other people's approvals, to be very candid. We understand that we can change our lives at any time, and that we are absolutely capable of doing what's going to work and making those changes. I'm a big believer in reading, and I'm big believer in personal improvement. Not everybody can read a book and actually apply it and make the changes. But I believe you don't need 100 self-help books to make the kinds of changes we're talking about. Well, maybe a few of those books are okay, but you don't need hundreds of books What you need is to begin to take some action. You need to be creating, again, back to habits. You need to be creating those good habits, form better habits. You need to start looking at them and deciding which ones just don't need to be stopped, but which ones and how can you replace it with a better one. You need some discipline, and you need to start doing some things differently. You need to take action if this is going to change. No one else can do it for you, as I mentioned earlier. But the good news is we all really have everything we need in order to do it. We have it within us to control our lives and to make something different, to make something we can be proud of, to rewrite the story, or not even rewrite the story, but to change the ending of the story that's been apparent by the way we've been living. I encourage you to embrace the power of self-responsibility, and remember that every moment is an opportunity for you to shape your path forward.